Project 6 Pig. So we want to build pig. Now first we need to understand what this project is. So how does pig work? Well, it is a multiplayer game. First of all, everyone plays a little bit different. But the way that I play is that you essentially get a turn. So comes your turn and you get to roll the die. When you roll the die, you are going to get some number from 1 to 6. If you get anything other than 1, you take that and you add that to the score of your turn. So let us say you get a 5. Now you are at 5. Roll it again. You get another 5. You are at 10 and you can decide how many times you want to roll the dice. Now the catch is, as soon as you hit a 1, whatever you got on your roll is going to be done. Whatever you got on your turn is 0. Like you completely remove the score. So you can roll 5 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 20 times, as much as you want. But every additional roll, you are gambling the possibility of losing your score. So you need to decide when you want to stop. As soon as you stop, whatever your current score is, assuming it is not 0, is going to get added to your total score. And then you can determine the number of total rolls you want to have. Or it is whoever reaches like 100 first or 50 first, whatever you want to do. In our case, we will say like the max score is something like 50. Whoever hits 50 first is just the winner of the game. Okay, so how we are going to build this out? Well, let us break down the individual things that we need to do. First, we need to allow the user to roll the dice. This means we need to come up with a way to roll. So, we have to have some random number generator giving us a number between 1 and 6. We then need to ask the user if they want to continue to roll. So either roll again or stop their turn. If they stop their turn, we need to take whatever their score is and add that to some total score. Then we need to constantly check if either player has a score that is above 50. If it is above 50, then we need to end the game and tell someone that they own. There are few other things that are involved, but those are the basic steps. Let us start by generating a random number. So what I am going to do is import the random module. Now random allows you to generate random numbers. What I am going to do is just define a roll function. Now a function in Python is a reusable block of code. You make it using def, standing for define. You then put the name of the function and then a set of parentheses. We are then going to put it inside of here in an indented block after a colon. So notice I am kind of one tab over any code. We want to run whenever we call the function. So what I will do here is I will say minimum, mean or mean value is equal to 1, max value is equal to 6, and then I am going to roll the die in between them. Now there is a few different ways to do this with the random module, but I believe we can say roll is equal to, and then this is going to be random dot rand, and then int, like that, and then this is going to be the minimum value and the maximum value of our die. Then we are simply going to return roll. Now the way the return keyword works is it is going to give whoever called the function this value kind of back, it is going to return it to them. So if I come down here and I say value is equal to roll, the way I call the function is I use my set of parentheses and then I can simply print out the value here. And you will see that if I bring my terminal up and we run the code, we get the value 3. We can run it again. We are getting 6, 3, 6, 5, 5, 5, 2. Let us see if we can get a 1. Okay, it looks like it really doesn't want to give us a 1. This would have been a fantastic turn. Okay, and there you go. We got a 1. So that would have ended our turn. Alright, there you go. That is how we generate a random roll. Okay, so now that we have that, we want to kind of set up the game, and we might begin by asking how many players are going to be participating, and then we can keep track of all the different players. Maybe we set it to say a maximum of 4 or something like that. So let us go down here. I am just going to zoom out a little bit and let us set up a while loop. When we say actually not while loop, we are going to say input. So we will say players is equal to input, and we are going to say enter the number of players, and we will say kind of 1 to 4 like that. And then notice I am putting a space here at the end just so we have a little bit of padding between where the user is going to give us the answer. So the idea is we are going to ask the user, okay, give us some value between 1 to 4. Then what we need to do is we need to check if this is a valid number. So I am actually going to kind of put a while loop here, and I am going to say while true, and then I am going to put this inside. The reason for this is I want to continue to ask the user to input a number until they give me one that is valid. So I say while true, and then I am going to break out if they give me a valid number. So I am going to say try, or actually we can do the following. We can say if players dot is digit. Now is digit is going to tell us if this is a digit or not. So if it is a number, if it is a valid whole number, especially is what it will give us. So I am going to say if players is digit, I am going to say players is equal to int and then players. Now what this does is convert what is going to be a string here into an integer, and the reason I need to check if it is a number first is because if I try to convert a string into an integer and it is not a valid integer, it is going to give me an error. So I don't want to crash the program. So I am saying okay, if this is actually a valid number, let us convert it into that number. The reason I need to do that is I now need to check if this number is greater than 1 and less than 4. If it is, I can then break out of this while loop because I have a valid number of players. Otherwise, I need to continue to keep asking them to enter a valid player. So I am going to say if 1 less than or equal to players less than or equals to 4. Okay, then I will simply break. What the break keyword will do is immediately exit outside of this while loop, meaning we will have access to the players variable down here, and we can just print out what the number of players is. If we don't encounter this break keyword, we will continue to ask the user until they give us a valid number of players. Now we could give them some output and say something like print invalid. Try again. And we could do something here where we say something like print must be between 1 to 4 players, and actually it cannot even be 1. It has to be 2, right? So we will have 2 or 4 like that, and we will put a 2, and we will put a 2 because we need to have at least 2 players to be able to play the game. Alright, so let us try this out. Let us run our code. Enter the number of players. Let us enter. One says we need to do it again. Okay, so it did not actually print anything out. I don't know why that happened. Oh, sorry. It is because. Okay, I will fix that in 1 second. That is an error. Anyways, we enter 2. It says must be between 2 to 4 players, which is a mistake. And then 2. So notice I made a bit of an error because I put this inside of the if statement when I wanted to put an else statement here and then put this here, because if this is a valid we break, which means we end the while loop. Otherwise we tell them okay, that was the error. So we just need to make that quick fix there with the if statement. Okay, in case you are confused, by the way, if statement checks if something is true. If it is, we kind of enter in this indented block which happens after the colon. Otherwise, we have this else statement which will trigger if the if statement is false. Okay, so I am going to clear and run, and let us go on. Okay, must be between 2 and 4. Let us go 5. Let us go hello. Let us go 3, and we are good to go. Okay, so now we have the number of players, and what we want to do is essentially simulate each player's turn where we ask them, do you want to roll the dice? Yes or no? They tell us yes or no, they roll, and then we start kind of calculating their score. So let us do this. First of all, let us make some variables here, and let us say our max score is equal to, and then we can do something like we will go with maybe, yeah, let us go with 50. For now we would probably want to make that larger, but just kind of for the sake of time, when we are testing this we will make it small. Then we want to have our player underscores, and that we will do for our player scores is we will just have a list which contains all of the individual scores. Now we don't know if we are going to have 2 players, 3 players or 4 players. So we are going to have this list kind of change size based on the number of players that we have. Now the way that we can kind of create or initially this list based on the number of players is we can say 04 underscore in, and then something like this in range the lane of players. Now what this is actually a list comprehension. I was thinking of the name there. What this does is it essentially puts a 0 inside of the list for every single player that we have. So what I am doing is saying for underscore, now I could put I here. But the thing is, I don't actually care about what the variable is. I just want to do this the number of players times. So I can put an underscore essentially saying, hey, I don't really care what the variable is. So like we need to have something there. But I am just going to put an underscore because I don't really want to use this. And then I am going to say in range the L of players. So what this range function will do is loop the number of players or the length of actually sorry, we don't need lane, just players. Here it will loop the number of players times that we have noticed that our players is going to be an int, right? So if it is 3, this will happen 3 times. If it is 4, it will happen 4 times, etc. I ignore the lane that I had there. I don't know why I put that there, just a silly mistake. Okay, so now we can print out our player scores, and you will see that we will get an array filled with zeros based on the number of players that we have. So if we do 3, gives us 3 zeros. If we run it again 4, we get 4 zeros. So now we are able to store each of our players' scores inside of this array. Fantastic. Okay. Now we need to go through our player turns. So we are essentially going to say, while the maximum of our player scores is less than the max score, then we will keep loop it. Now what max will do is give us the maximum value from this array or from this list. So if it is 23, gives us 23. If it is 55, gives us that. We are saying okay, as long as it is less than the maximum score, it means no one's reached the max. We will keep going. As soon as someone does reach the maximum score, we need to stop and then tell the players whoever kind of own the game. Alright, how we going to do this? Well, let us go here and we will say first of all R. We will say should underscore roll is equal to input, and we will say would you like to roll question mark, and we are just going to put here a y, which means we want the user to input the key y. So when we can come here, we can say if should roll to lower is equal to y. The reason I am converting this to lowercase, which is what lower does, is because if they enter a capital Y, I still want them to roll, right? So this is just checking is it capital or lowercase, doesn't matter. We are going to convert it to lowercase and then check if it is equal to the lowercase y. If it is, then we are going to roll the dice for them. So we are going to say roll is equal to, and actually I can't use roll because that is the name of the function. So I am going to say value is equal to roll. Okay, otherwise I am simply going to break. And actually a better way to do this, that is going to be a little bit cleaner for me, is I am going to say it should roll dot lower does not equally y. Then I will break out, otherwise I will say my value is equal to the rule. So the reason I am doing this is because I want to have all my code kind of not indented if I don't have to have it indented. So I am saying okay, if you did not hit Y, that means we are just going to stop your turn. Otherwise, we are going to roll the die. Now there is a lot more code we are going to need to write, but I am just kind of going through this. You know, as I normally would, and then we will kind of stop and fix things as we need to. So we are going to grab that rule and we are going to check if that rule is equal to 1. If it is equal to 1, then whatever the player's current score is just going to become 0 and we are going to move to the next person's turn. Now we still need to simulate the turns and all of that, which we will do in a minute, and all of that which we will do in a minute. But for now, just kind of bear with me. So we are going to say if value is equal to 0, then we can simply say print. Or sorry, not 0. We are going to say you roll the one turn. Done! Exclamation point. Otherwise, we will print you rolled and then whatever the rule is. So we can say something like actually value like that. Okay, so let us put a CO in you rolled and then whatever the value is. Alright, so now that we have this and we are kind of printing out what they rolled. I am just going to go up here and I am going to mark the current score equal to 0 because we need somebody to keep track of what the player score is. Now if they did not roll a 1, then what I am going to do is I am going to say the current score plus equals whatever the value of the die was. I am going to tell them what they rolled and then down here I am just going to print your current or your score is and then we will print out whatever the current score is and then we will kind of continue. Now here I am just going to break this because the idea is alright. Well, if you roll a 1, your turn's done. So we are going to break out. Alright. So this kind of simulates once per person's turn story. But again, we have not really kind of handled the fact that we have multiple people going at once and following someone's turn to continue multiple times. So what we actually need to do is we need to use a for loop here. What we will do is we will put a for loop kind of right here. So we will say for I in range players. So I is going to represent the current player. So we will say player under index or player IDX. So player 0, 1, 2, 3 or player 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to call it. And in this for loop, we will then simulate the person's entire turn. So we will mark the current score, but then all of the stuff that is going to here needs to happen until the player stops their turn. So what we will do is we will have a while loop and we will say while true and then we will put all of this here. Then outside of the while loop we are going to say that the player underscores at index player IDX is going to be plus equal to whatever their current score is. Then outside of the while loop we are going to say that the player underscores at index player IDX is going to be plus equal to whatever their current score is. So like the current score is kind of the score per turn and then the total score is what we are going to be adding to after they finish their turn. So what we will do after we add that is we will say print your total score is colon and then we will say that this is going to be the player scores at the player IDF. Okay, we will go through this again in 1 second. But for now, we are making good progress on the terms. Alright, so I am just reading through this. It is looking okay. However, I am realizing that if the value is 1, then we are going to have to set the current score equal to 0 just so that we make sure we don't add what their score was before they rolled a 1. Alright, so let us kind of run through this here. We have our for loop. We say 4 player index in range players, which means we are looping over all of our different players. So they each get a turn. We probably want to print out something like player and then let us say player IDX plus 1. Turn has just started. just so they know that it is now their turn. And what I am going to do is print a backslash right here and a backslash. What this is going to do is just add a line break so that we have a bit of separation when the player's turn starts. So we say OK player, and then we are doing +1 because this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, we probably want to show 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is what we are showing. So we say player whatever its turn has just started. We could say player number turn has just started. Okay, we set the current score equal to 0 for the turn. We simulate the turn. We ask them if they like to roll. If they say yes, or if they don't say yes, sorry, we break out. Otherwise, we roll. If they got a 1, we say they rolled a 1. Their turn is done. Their current score is 0. We break out. Otherwise, we take whatever the current score is and we add to that the value that they rolled because it was not a 1, and then we continue this whole process again. So we tell them this is what you rolled, and then we say your current score is this, which is going to be the sum of what they rolled plus you know what their current score is. Okay, then eventually we are going to get outside of this while loop when they roll 1 or when they tell us that they don't want to roll anymore. We are going to take that score, add that to their total score, and then print that out. Now we are not quite finished, but this will simulate most of the game so far. All we really need to do is determine when someone wins. So let us zoom out a bit so we can kind of read most of what we have here. We have our roll function. We ask the player or we ask the input the number of players we want. We have the maximum score. Generate kind of an empty list for storing the scores, and then we have this code which is going to simulate the terms. Let us run this and see what we get here. Okay, so let us zoom in a bit and the number of players. Let us go with 2 player number. One turn has started. Okay, would you like to roll? Yes, you roll a 6. Your score is 6. Would you like to roll? Yes, you rolled a 4. Your score is 10. Would you like to roll? Okay, yes. Let us keep rolling. Yes, 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 yes. I am trying to get a 1 here, and it says you rolled a 1. Your turn is done. Your total score is 0. Player two's turn has started. Would you like to roll? Yes. 5. Okay. Let us roll again. And we roll the 1. Alright. And you will see that we can continue this. Right? So I am going to try to get a pretty high score, although this is not working too well. Okay, let us stop rolling there. Now our total score is 15. Player 2 turn. Okay, yes, 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 yes. Really gambling here. Okay, let us stop the roll. Okay, yes, roll to 6. Your score 6. Yes, 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 no. Okay, total score 42. Let us roll, roll, roll. And now total score is 51. And then notice the program ends here because all of the players' turns have finished and someone had a score of 51. So we end. We should really be telling them you know that you own, which is there are a few things we would probably want to do to make this a bit better. For example, at the beginning of the turn, we should probably tell them what their score is so that they know that before they go into the turn, so they can stop. Once they hit what the max score is. Okay, so later do this. We are going to say player 1's turn has just started, and then we are going to print here your total score is colon and then the player score at the player idx. Okay, and then we are going to begin the turn. So we can actually just remove that backslash and we will just put one right here so that we kind of go one line down. Okay, do all of this, and then as soon as this ends, what that tells us is that at least one player has a score above 50. Now multiple players can have a score above 50, and the reason this works is as soon as someone hits 50, we don't end until every player gets a turn. The reason why that is fair is because whoever goes first would have an advantage. So in this case, we let everyone have at least that last roll, and then we see whoever has the max score after the last roll. So what we can do now is we can just find what that maximum score is. We can actually get the index of that score inside of player scores, and that will tell us which player won. So the way we do this is we simply say max score is equal to the max of our player scores, and then we are going to say player winning idx is equal to, or actually we can just say winning idx is equal to the player scores dot index, and we can index the maximum score. What that does is gives us the index either 0, 1, 2 or 3 of where that maximum score is, which tells us player 0, player 1, player 2, etc. So then we can just print player comma winning index plus 1. So we will say player number, and the reason we are adding 1 is because again we are going to start at 0. So we want to make sure we are going from 1 to 4, not 0 to 3. And we will say is the winner with a score of colon and then what the maximum score was. Okay, so that would wrap up the game. Let us give this one last run here. Okay, enter the number of players. Let us go with 2 player number. Turn has just started. Your total score is 0. Would you like to roll? Yes. Roll to 5. Let us roll again. Roll again. Roll again. And no. Okay. 16. Would you like to roll? Yes. Okay. That ended fast. You like to roll? Yes. 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 No. Okay. And to score 0. Would you like to roll? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, yes, yes, and no. Okay, now it is player 2's turn. So let us roll. Yes, okay, that ended fast. Yes, okay. Now we have the max score. So let us say no. Player 2 still gets a turn even though we now have a score of 51. I am just going to say no, and it says player number 1 is the winner with a score of 51. Okay, so that completes that first project. Project 7, Madlib's generator. Now let us move on to the project number 7. Alright, for project number 7, we are going to do that Mad Libs generator. The idea is we will have some type of story. The story will have replaceable words like an adjective or a location or a weather condition, whatever it may be. What we will then do is we will ask the user to give us all of the different words. We will then inject them in the story and then read the story back out to the user. Now the first thing we are going to need for this is a story. So the process as I kind of described there is have a story with those injectable words, essentially grab what those words are, ask the user to input them and then place them in the story. Now I am going to show you that there is a lot easier way to do that I am about to do, but I want to show you a way that we do it with any story. So that means that you can make this program really dynamic, and you could have like 20 stories, 50 stories, 100 stories, or you can just replace them without having to write any additional code. The way we are going to do that is by taking the story and placing it inside of the text file. That way, as long as the story is written in a specific format, we can read in the story, do the operations we need to, and then kind of run the program as we see fit. Now what I always do whenever I need something like this is I don't write it from scratch because I am a lazy programmer. I go to the chat GPT. So what I actually did here is I asked it using this prompt. I am making a Madlib generator in Python. Let us make this full screen. I am going to need a story where the user can give me some words. You can give me the story even though I spelled that correctly, and for all of the words where the user needs to give them to me. Make them like this angle bracket word. Now it gave me a nice long story and it had all the different words and it kind of listed them all out. That was a bit long for me. So I said that is okay. But can you make it in less words please? And then it gave me kind of a shorter story. So the idea here is that whenever we have these angle brackets, we are going to kind of treat that as a word that needs to be replaced. So what we will do is we will take the story from ChatGPT. So I am just going to copy this on my clipboard. We will put it in a text file. We will load that story in for all of those individual words. We will then kind of grab them, figure out what they are, ask the user to give us a word for them, and then replace them in the story. Alright, how do we want to do this well? The way I will do this is I will copy that first of all and I will go here to VS Code and I will make a file called story.txt and then I will paste that inside of here. Now make sure when you do this that you put your story in the same directory where your Python file is. So here I have project7.py and I have story.txt in the same directory. Very important that you do that. Otherwise, this is not going to work for you. Okay, and if you want this story, you can go click the link in the description and just download the story from GitHub. I will make it available for you after. Okay, so how do we do this? First thing we need to do is load this in. Now I want to load this in as a string essentially and then be able to kind of pass through that string and look for all of those different words. Now there is a few ways to do this, but the way I will do this is I will say with open. I am going to open story.txt in read modes as if, and then I am going to put a call in. Now what I have done here is I have used the open function, and the open function allows me to open a file. So I can open a text file, a JSON file, really any type of file I want, and the mode here which is what I have placed. Second is the way in which we are kind of reading in it. So I am going to read it in read mode, which is R mode. If I put W, this stands for write mode, where we would actually be creating a new file and overriding a file if it already existed with the same name. So we don't want to use W mode. We want to use R mode. This now allows me to read the story.txt file in, and the reason I am using this with syntax is what this does is provides something known as a context for this file, which means I can do any file operations on this var variable f inside of this indented block, and as soon as I get outside of that indented block, Python is automatically going to clean up the file for me, which means it will close it and make sure everything is good with the file. So kind of best practice in terms of opening files here. So what I am going to do is say my story is equal to f dot read. Now when I do read, all this does is give me all of the text inside of the file. So I can simply print out story here, and you will see if I run this that I get my story appearing here in my terminal. Okay, so now that we have read that, in what I would like to do is look for all of the words in my story. Now there is a bunch of different ways to do this, but essentially what we need to do is find the presence of this angle bracket. As soon as we find that, we want to find up to this closing bracket, right? So we want to find every individual word, take that word, store that in some kind of list that we are going to have access to, ask the user to give us a word to replace it with, and then and replace all of the instances of this word with whatever the user told us. Okay, so let us do that. What we want to do is loop through our story. Now our string, we can actually access all of the individual characters as an index. So what I can do, let us zoom in here and say for a comma character in enumerate, and we are going to enumerate the story. Now what enumerate does is gives us access to the position as well as the element at that position, just makes it a little bit cleaner for us here. So now I am just going to check essentially if this is equal to an angle bracket. If it is equal to an angle bracket, then I kind of need to do something to mark the fact that I found the start of a word, and then I need to go until I find the end of it. So we are going to set up a few variables here, and we are going to say words is equal to this, because we want to store what all of these different words are. And then what should we do here? We should say start of word is equal to 1. Okay, so we are going to have this variable, and this variable is pretty much going to tell us if we have currently found the starting index of a word. If we have, that means we can then look for the end. If we haven't, then we are going to wait until we find that starting index. So what we will do here is we will say if char is equal to and I am going to make another variable. I am going to call this target start. This is going to be equal to the open angle bracket, and I am going to have my target ends equal to the cons angle bracket, just so that if we were to change the format of the story, we could easily adjust this by changing the value of the variables. So I am going to say if the char is equal to the target start, then that I will do is I will say the start of the word is equal to index I, and if I found that opening angle bracket, okay, we just found the beginning of the word. Let us mark that by indicating that in our variable. Now what we will do is we will say if the char is equal to the target end, the start of the word does not equal -1. The reason why we are doing this is we are saying if we found the ending angle bracket and we had the starting angle bracket, right, which will be marked by the start of the word variable, which if it is equal to -1 means we haven't yet found the beginning. If it is equal to anything else, that means we did find the beginning. Then we can take that entire word and add that to our words list. So what we will do now is we will say word is equal to, and this is going to be story at index start of word up to the index I plus 1. Now what this gives us access to is a slice, which is a subsection of the string. So this is the slice operator here in Python, where we indicate the starting character. So the character we want to begin taking a slice from, and then the ending character that we are going to go up to, but not including or the ending index. So in this case we know the start of the word, so we put that here, and we know the end of the word because that is the current index that we are on, that we just found. But we need to add 1 to it to make sure that we include this ending index in our word. So we are going to grab that, we are going to put that inside of our word or word variable. Sorry, we are going to say words dot append word, which means we are going to now add this word into our words list, and then we are going to set our start of word equal to -1 because we have now found one whole word. So now we reset the start of word. So we are ready to handle it for the next character that we find, which is that happening in angle bracket. So this code here will actually find all of the different words for us in the story. So let us test this by printing our words. Okay, let us run the code, and I think my terminal is a little bit cut off. You can see that we get all of the different words. Now what you might notice here is that we have duplicated words. Now the reason we have duplicated words is because this word could appear multiple different times. Now that is fine if it does, but I only want to have the words that are unique. Now the way that we can essentially do this is we can change from using a list, and instead we can use a set. Now a set is a data structure which will only contain unique elements. So if I add the same element in, it is not going to do anything. We just have one instance of each unique element. The way to do that is just to write set here instead of a list, and then rather than append we are going to say add. Now add, we will just add this to the set, and you will see now that when we run this we will just get all of the different unique words. Perfect. Okay, now that we have those words, what we want to do is ask the user to give us a value for each of the words. So the way we will do this is we will set up a dictionary. So we are going to say answer is equal to a dictionary. The idea is we want to have the words as the keys, so something like name, and then the value in our dictionary will be whatever answer they gave us. So something like Prakash. The reason we will do this is so we can very easily look up the value of a word. So we say name Prakash blah blah blah. Okay. And then what we will do is we will take whatever these values are and replace them in our story later on. The way the dictionary works is you add a key by doing something like this. Answer is key is equal to and then whatever the value you want, and you can access the key by just using the square bracket syntax like this. Okay, so we have our answers. This is going to be an empty get dictionary. What we will now do is we will look through all of the unique words that we have, and we will ask the user to give us a value for them. So we are going to say forward in words iterating through our set, and we are going to say answer is equal to input enter a word for, and then we are going to do plus and then whatever the word is. Now notice we cannot do a comma here because we are using the input statement, not the print statement. So we need to concatenate, which means add two strings together. So we take the word so that the user knows where to start writing. Okay, so that gives us an answer. We are then going to say answer at word is equal to answer, and let us spell answers correctly. Okay, that will now create a dictionary that has all of the words associated with all of the values. So let us now print out answers. Okay, so let us come here. Says enter a word for project. Let us go something like chair, weather condition, sunny, adverb, I don't know. Let us see gently place, school, omission to sad, animal, beer, place to, I don't know, house, terrain, what is this? Grass. Okay. Character Prakash. Objective 1. Jumps. Emotions happy. And there you go. It gives us now all of the different words and their answers. Now we have that, we can take every single sentence of those words and essentially kind of replace them in the story. So now we are going to have another for loop, and we are going to say forward in words. Now the great thing in Python is that we have this method called replace all or replace I don't know which one it is. I think it is replace all either way. What this is going to do is replace every single instance of one string with another. So that is super convenient for us. See you. We know the string we want to look at, which is that kind of angle bracket, and we want to replace that with our answer. So now what we will do is we will simply say story dot replace. I think this replaces all instances of it. We are going to check that in 1 second, and we are going to replace our word, which is that angle bracket string, with the answers of our word, and then we can just print out our story and we will be good. We will have the entire program finished. So let me quickly run through the code and then I will show you how this works. So we open up our story.txt. We read this in. We create a set of all of our unique words. We then say the start of the word is equal to 1. We have our target kind of opening bracket, target closing bracket, and this first block of code here goes and locates all of the different words that are inside of our story. So we say for I character and enumerate story getting the index as well as the value. We say if the character is equal to that starting kind of open angle bracket, let us mark that by saying the start of the word is equal to I. Then down here, if we found the ending bracket and we have the start of the word, we have just found the end of the word. So now what we can do is grab that word using our slice syntax, add that to our set, and then reset start of word. Then we have all of our words. So we need to generate an answer for them which we ask the user to do, and then we simply go through and replace all of the instances of our word with the answer the user gave us. Awesome. Let us give this a shot. Let us make this full screen and run animal, beer, adverb, gently, character, Prakash. Awesome. Let us give this a shot. Let us make this full screen and run animal, beer, adverb, gently, character, Prakash. I probably should do lowercase for, but that is fine. Weather condition sunny, terrain grass, place school. Adjective 1 I don't know through emotion too sad. Place 2 let us go with saucer, field, emotion, happy, object, chair. Okay, and unfortunately, it seems as though this actually didn't work. So, I am going to have to look at what the problem was here. I already know what the issue, so I said story dot replace. However, what this does is this gives me a new string. So what I was doing is I was just kind of generating a string that I was not storing anywhere. So story didn't change. This gives me a few string. So what I actually need to do here is say story is equal to then story do replace and then do this. Now there is more efficient ways to go about doing this, but this will be perfect fine for our purposes. So if we fix this up now and let us save that. So again just we kind of are now changing the story every time by updating that variable. What we will do is run this again. Emotion sad, adjective through, character Prakash, place school, terrain grass, place two saucer field, object chair, adverb gently, emotion sad, animal beer, weather condition sunny. Okay, in the throwland of school, adjective. Okay, I used the wrong thing for an adjective there. Anyways, in the true land of school, a bear was feeling sad. The bear had lost its chair. Suddenly, a Prakash appeared. I will help you find the chair, they said together. They journeyed through grass and faced the sunny. Okay, I probably should have said like raining or something. Finally, they found the chair in a saucer field. The bear was so sad and thanked the Prakash that they lived gently ever after. Alright, you know what, that is not so bad. I think there was a few words that I probably messed up writing. But there we go. We get the story and yeah, there you are. Now if you wanted to, you could store that in a text file, But I think that pretty much wrap up this project. This was pretty cool, and obviously if you kind of change the story around, give some better words, you could get some pretty interesting results there. Regardless, hope you guys enjoyed. Let us move to the next project. All right, project 8, math questions. So let us get into project number 8. Now the idea for project 8 is we want to randomly generate a bunch of different math questions, ask the user those questions, and then not let them to continue until they get it correct. Well, then time how long it takes them to answer all of the questions. So the first thing we need to do is be able to randomly generate these problems. Now there is a bunch of different parameters we can use, right? We have a set of operators we can use. It is like plus, minus, addition, multiplication. We could even use exponent and stuff if we wanted to. And then we have kind of the max values as the operand, like the min, max value. And then we have kind of the max values as the operand, like the minimum, maximum value, etc. So what I am going to do is write a few variables that we will use as constants that we can change, that will make this either easier or harder depending on what you want to do. Now first of all, we are going to need random because we are going to be randomly generating operand. Then we are going to need the operators. So I am actually going to do this in all capitals. I am going to say operators is equal to this, and I am going to say mean operand and max operand. Okay, we will say for the mean maybe we have a mean value of 3, and for the max go something like 12 for the operators. I am going to use a string. I am going to put in Python operators. Okay, it is important that these are ones that could actually be used in Python, because I am going to show you the way that we will actually figure out what the answer is. This is not going to be that long of a project, but it will show you a cool function that you might not have seen before in Python. So what we are going to do is write a function called generate problem. Okay, now what this is going to do is generate a problem for us that uses one of these operators and then a random operand on the left and right side. So we are going to say left is equal to random dot rand and int, and this is going to be the mean operand and the max operand. We are then going to say right is equal to random dot rand int, and again the mean operand and the max operand. Now I am actually going to remove division because I am realizing that the way I am going to write this is not going to work too well with division. We need like a separate set of parameters. So for now we will just use these three operations, which I think is fine. Okay, we are then going to randomly select an operator. So we are going to say operator is equal to rand, and there is actually this function called choice. What this does is just randomly pick one of the elements from a list. So I can say random dot choice operators that will just give me randomly one of these. Then I am going to say my expression, which is xpr or exp, here is going to be equal to the left plus the right plus the operator. However, I need my left to be a string and I need my right to be a string. Okay, so this is going to give us the expression which would be the left hand side plus the right hand side, and what we will actually do is we will just add a space in between here, so I can print this out and you can just see kind of what it looks like. So let us add a space like that. Okay, so now let us call generate problem and let us just print out the expression and then return it just so we can see what that is. Okay, so clear. And Python project 8, and I got an error, can only concatenate string not into string. Okay, sorry, that is because I put this in wrong order. So operand or operator, sorry, plus the right. Okay, so let us fix this and run again, and we get 12 plus 9. Let us run a few more times and you can see we are kind of getting random operands and random values. Sweet. Alright, that is working. Now the question becomes, okay, we randomly generate this, but we need to know what the answer is, right? Since we are randomly generating it, it becomes a bit more difficult to calculate the answer. Now, what we could do is just use a bunch of if statements, right? And I can say if the operand is plus, add them together, and if it is minus, subtract them. If it is multiplication, multiply them. That is fine. However, I want to make this a bit more dynamic such that we can kind of make this a bit larger and we don't have to do all of those in if statements. Now the way to do that, so we can actually do this and say answer is equal to function called eval. Now what eval does is evaluate a string as if it was a Python expression. Now notice we have an expression that is valid Python code, like 6 minus 12 is valid code that we can evaluate. So all I have to do is put this expression inside of the evaluation and it actually just tells me what the answer is. So now what I can do is I can return my expression and the answer like that. And if I go here and say exp answer is equal to that, I can print them out. So I can print the expression. Excuse me here, sorry, but I can print the expression and the answer and it will tell me what it is. So I am just showing you how we can kind of avoid having like if it is this, do this, otherwise do this. That is fine, that is valid to the evaluate it that way, but we can use this eval function. So if I run this, I get 7 minus 3, that is 4, right? 12 minus 4, 8, 10 plus 5, 15. So I figured you guys would find this eval function kind of cool. Hence why I wanted to show it to you. Alright, so that is our generate problem and that is really most of the coding done. What we need to do now is determine the total number of problems. We then essentially need to set the timer when the user begins and we need to ask them to answer it right. So what I am going to do is say total problems is equal to 10, then this to whatever you want, but the idea is I am putting all of these capital or capital variables at the top of my program. These are constants, meaning they are not going to change and we can simply change them around like once. We are kind of going to run the program a second, third time to make this more challenging easier, like we can set the parameters of the program from these variables right up here. Okay, so now that we have that, what we will do to begin is we will kind of just ask them the number of problems, then we will set up the timer. So we are going to say for I in range, and then this will be the total problems, and then we will print something like this. So we are going to say expression answer is equal to generate a problem, so that gets us a unique problem. We are then going to print problem number, and then we will say I plus 1 inside a parenthesis, and this will need to be a string. So what we are doing is we are converting I plus 1 to a string. So it will be like problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, so that they know. Then we are going to say plus a colon. Now notice the reason I am using pluses here is because I don't want to have a space between my different values. I just want to have them kind of in line. So I am saying problem number 1 colon space plus and then the expression. Okay, and then we will put, actually I am realizing we are going to put this inside of an input statement. Sorry. So we are going to switch this around, and we are going to say guess is equal to input, and then we will have plus the expression plus an equal sign like that. So now what we are going to do is we are saying okay, problem number 1, here is the expression, so here is the problem equals, and then the user can type in their answer, and then what we will do is we will keep asking them this until they get it correct. Sweet. So then the inside of here we will do a while loop. We will say while true we will do this. We will say if guess is equal to answer, then we will break. And now the thing is our answer is going to be an integer, but our guess is going to be a string. So we are going to convert our answer into a string so that we can compare the same types. Because if you compare an int to a string, even if they are the same value, like the string 10, the number 10, it is going to say false. Now I want to convert the answer to a string, not the guess to an int, because if I try to convert the guess to an int to match the answer type, and they had typed in something that was not a valid int, then that would crash my program, which I don't want. So this way I am kind of solving for that. I am going to make sure that I don't have any potential crashes. Okay, so if they got it right, break. Otherwise, we are just going to keep asking it to them. We don't need to give them any feedback. They can just keep attempting the answer. Okay, so that is good. I think that is actually going to be it for all of our problems. Alright, so let us run this. Now give this a shot. Now I am about to embarrass myself. I haven't done math in so long, so let us hope it gives me some easy ones. Okay, 9, 5, 5 times 8, 40. Okay, 20, 10, 8 into 7. I always mess these ones up. Not 64, 56. Okay, 88. And there we go. We finished the problems. Alright, so that was actually pretty good. Did I get any wrong? No, I didn't. Okay, let us try it again. Let us get one wrong this time, and Nose is going to keep asking until we get this correct, and then we continue. Okay, I am just going to hit Ctrl C to exit out that. And now what we will do is we will set up the timer. Now I would love to make it. So the timer like shows you the timer. It is going to be a little bit difficult to do without going into some more advanced code. So what we will do is we will just start the timer as soon as they say like they are ready to start, and then we will tell them what their time was at the end, and we can also tell them like number of correct answers. So let us do something like this. We will say wrong is equal to 0, and every time they get it wrong, so we can just go here and say wrong plus equals 1, and then that way we can tell them kind of what their accuracy was at the end. Alright, so wrong. We are also going to import time. Alright, and now before we start doing all of this, we just want to ask them like, okay, are you ready to begin? As soon as they hit enter, then we start the timer. Just they have a second to like rather themselves before it begins. So I am going to say input. I am going to say press enter to start. Okay, really they can press anything they want, and it is going to continue as long as they go to the next line, so they can type something in if they want it. Doesn't matter to press enter to start. We will print out like this. Okay, and then it will begin, and I am just going to take this and print it once they are done, and then we will print nice work, and then whatever else we want to do. Okay, so as soon as we do this, as soon as I hit input, we are going to start the time. Now I inputted this time model, and what I can do is I can say start time is equal to time dot time. Now this is going to give me what is known as the Unix time. Yeah, I think it is that. That is what it is called. Let us see here. So actually, yes, it says return the current time in seconds since the epoch. Don't worry too much about exactly what that means, but it is going to give us some kind of timestamp in seconds. So what we do is we kind of mark the start time. Then we just need to figure out what time they ended at. Then we subtract the two times, and that to tell us the total amount of time. So as soon as they finish the for loop, here we say end time is equal to time dot time, and then we just say dot total time is equal to the end time minus the start time, and then we can print out how long it took them. So we will do that down here. Nice work. You finished in comma total time, and we will do comma seconds like that. Now we could parse this and do minutes, hours, etc. But I think just doing the number of seconds is fine, and that will be our program. Okay, let us give this a shot. So on the code, press enter the start. Okay, so that is 80, that is 17, minus 2, minus 6, 11, 77. Fortunately, it is giving me some easy ones here. 16, minus 3, 36. Okay, nice work. You finished in 16.95. Blah blah blah. Whatever seconds. We could probably round this off if we wanted to make it a little bit better. So let us do that, and we will take this and round it to the nearest two digits. Okay, do this one more time. See if we can beat our time of 16 seconds. That was pretty fast. I don't know if I am going to be able to do that. Okay, minus 2. minus 11. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, definitely not going to win. Now 49, 14, 30, minus 4, 12, 0, 10, 21, 17. Oh, I was pretty close even with that mistake. I was reading it as 7, minus 8, not 8, minus 7. Hence why I made the mistake 3 times. Anyways, that was pretty good. Alright, so that completes our program and all of our projects. So you are probably wondering now what kind of project are we going to work on. Now I wanted to pick something that was unique and that I haven't done before. Project 9, Text Based Slot Machine. So we are actually going to build a text-based slot machine. Now the way this will work is the user will deposit a certain amount of money. We are then going to allow them to bet on either 1, 2 or 3 lines of the slot machine just to keep it pretty simple. I know in real slot machines they have a lot more lines than that, and then we are going to determine if they want. So if they go any lines, we are going to multiply their bet by the value of the line, add that to their balance, and then allow them to keep playing until they want to cash out or until they run out of money. So this is actually a fairly complex project because we need to do a lot of things. We need to collect the user deposit. We need to add that to their balance. We need to allow them to bet on a line or on multiple lines. We then need to see if they actually got any of these lines. We then need to spin the slot machine, or we would have done that before, right? We need to generate the different items that are going to be in the slot machine on the different reels, and then we need to add whether they own back to their balance. So there is quite a bit of stuff going on here, and this should be a challenging enough project to make it interesting for you guys. So before we even get into this, I just want to mention I am not supporting gambling here. This is just kind of a cool thing that we can do. We are not using any real money, and I think it is a good project. So just keep that in mind. Do not gamble. I am not supporting that by making this video. And before I write any code, what I like to do here is just think of the different things that we need to do in this project and kind of pick a good starting point to place. Where I like to start usually is collecting some user input, and for this project we need to get the deposit that the user is entering as well as their bet, right? Those are kind of the two things we need before we can start actually using the slot machine and generating, whatever the slot machine spun. So to do this, I am going to make a function here called deposit. Now I am just inside of Visual Studio Code. You can work in ED and editor you want. Sorry, and I have this main.py function open. I assume you guys can open your own Python file and kind of work in your preferred environment. So this function here is going to be responsible for collecting user input that gets the deposit from the user. Now function, if you are unfamiliar, is just something that we can call that is going to execute a certain block of code and then can potentially return us a value, and you will see how this works in a second. So what I am going to do here, set up a while loop, and the reason I need a while loop is because I am going to continually ask the user to enter a deposit amount until they give me a valid amount. So if they don't give me a valid amount, then they need to keep typing in until eventually we get one. So to do this, I am going to say my account is equal to input, and then inside of input I am going to pass a prompt which is some text that will happen before we allow the user to start typing. So for the prompt I can say, what would you like to deposit, question mark, and then I can put something like a dollar sign, and then allow them to start typing after the dollar sign. Okay, now what I need to do is check if this amount is actually a number, because they could type in anything here, right? They could type in a low word, they could type in nothing and just hit enter. They can do whatever they want. So I need to make sure that the amount actually is a number before I get out of this while loop. So I am going to say if the amount dot is and then digit like this, then we can do something inside of here. Now is digit is just going to tell us if this is a valid whole number. So if it is something like 1,000, 10, whatever, if they type in a negative number, it actually won't be true. So if they do something like 9, then it is not going to be true, and we call is digit. Anyways, this is a method you can use on strings to determine if this is a valid number. So if this is a digit, then what I am going to do is I am going to convert this into an int. So I am going to say amount is equal to int amount, and that is because by default this comes as a string, and we want to have a numeric value for our balance or for our deposit. So we need to convert this to an int. However, I cannot do this before I make this check, because if I do that, then this could potentially fail, because if they try to type in something like hello world, then this here is invalid. I cannot convert hello world into an integer. So that is why I am first checking if they did actually enter a valid number. If they did, I then convert it to a number. Now what I need to do is check if this number is greater than 0. So I am going to say if the amount is greater than, not equal to, but is greater than 0, then I am going to break out of this while loop. If it is not greater than 0, then I am going to put an else statement here, and I am going to say print amount must be greater than 0 dot OK. There we go. Now I am just going to add one more else statement down here, and I am going to say print please. If we could type this correctly, enter a number. Okay, then finally here we are going to return our amount. Alright, so let me go through what we just did here. So we wrote a function deposit. This is a while loop. So we are going to continue to do this until eventually we break out, and this breakout keyword just ends the while loop, and then will bring us down to this line. I ask what is the amount you want to deposit. They enter something. If this is a digit, then I am going to convert this to an integer, and I am going to check if this is greater than 0. If it is a valid amount, we can work with this. We will break out, and then we will return that amount, and we can use that later on. Okay, otherwise I am going to print this amount must be greater than 0, because if it is not greater than 0, well, we need to tell them that and then get them to try again. Alright, so that handles this first if statement. Now, if the amount is not a digit, then what we are going to do is print. Sorry, please enter a number, and we are going to continue this until we get a number and until we break. Alright, so that is that function. Now we call the function if we spell deposit correctly. Here I don't even know how I messed that up so badly. Okay, deposit. To call the function, we simply write the name of the function and we put our two parentheses. And now, as soon as I run my code, this function will run and we will be able to actually enter a number. So, later do this. You can see in my terminal that is asking me, what would you like to deposit? Let us go with something like $10 and all is good. Now if I run this again and I enter something like hello world, it tells me please enter a number. Okay, let us enter 0. Alright, amount must be greater than 0. Enter 1. I am good to go. So there we go. We have written our first deposit function and I have tested it. It is working good. We are all good to go. Alright. So now what I am going to do is I am going to say my amount is equal to my deposit, and actually we are going to call this balance, and this is kind of the start of our program here. And in fact I am going to put our program in this function main, so that if we end our program we can just call this function again and then it will return the program, right? So I can say, do you want to play again? And then we can return the main function and we will be good to go. So we have done that. Now I need to call the main function so that we start running main, and then it is going to do everything inside of here. Okay, so now inside of max score, the next thing that I want to do is I want to collect the bet from the user. So there is actually a few ways I can do this, but I need to determine how much they want to bet, and then now many lines they want to bet on, and then I would multiply their bet amount by the number of lines. So it probably makes sense to ask the number of lines first and then ask them how much they want to bet on each line. So it is not confusing. If I say how much you want to bet, they put $10 and then they say 3 lines and it ends up being $30. See what I mean? So let us say define. We will say get number of lines like this, and inside of here we are going to ask them to pick a number between 1 and 3, because that will be the number of lines that we have. And to keep this program nice and dynamic, I am going to add what is known as a global constant at the top of my program, and I am going to say max score lines is equal to 3. Now I am doing this in all capitals because this is a constant value, something that is not going to change, and this is a convention in Python. You do it in all capitals. I am making it equal to 3. Okay, so now anywhere in my program where I am referencing the number of maximum lines in my slot machine, rather than writing 3, I will just write this, and then later on I can easily change this to be 5, and the whole program will update based on that, right? So let us make this 3 for now. Okay, so get number of lines. Obviously the minimum lines will be 1. We don't need to write that in. Okay, so we need to ask them to enter this. So we can actually just copy everything we have in the deposit function and just change a few values here. So we are going to say while true rather than amount, we are going to say lines, and we will say enter the number of lines to bet on. Okay, and then I want to put inside of here kind of the options. So like 1 to 3. So I am going to write 1 dash, and then I am actually going to do a concatenation here plus, and then I am going to convert my number of lines or my max number of lines to a string, and then I am going to say plus, and then I am going to put ending bracket here, question mark, and then a space. Okay, I know it seems a little bit confusing, but what I have just done here is I have now added max lines inside of this string. There is a few other way to do this, but this is the most basic. So that is how I am doing it, and I need to convert this to a string, because if I add two strings together, they get squished together. But if this was a number and I tried to add it to a string, then this would cause an exception in my program. So enter the number of lines to bet on 1 dash, and then I am going to put in whether the string version is of the maximum number of lines in my bracket. Put a question mark, and then I am putting a space so that when they start typing they are not like connected to the question mark, they are off by one space, and it looks easier for them to read, right? Okay, so now something I need to make sure that actually did enter a number. So I am going to say if lines dot is digit, then I am going to say that my lines is equal to int lines like this, and I am going to check now if the lines is within the bound that I had. So within 1 and 3. So the way to do this is I am going to say if, and I am actually going to say 0. Actually, we will say 1 less than or equal to lines, less than or equal to, and then this will be the max line. Alright, so this is something you can do in Python you may not have seen before. If I want to check if a value is in between two values, I can write it like this. So what I am saying here is if my line is greater than or equal to 1 and is less than or equal to the maximum line that I am, okay, I can break. Otherwise, I need to tell them to enter a valid number of lines. So I am going to say enter a valid number of lines. Okay. Otherwise, same thing we will say enter a number, and then rather than returning the amount, we will return the lines. Okay. Perfect. So now we have a function that gets the deposit amount and the number of lines. So now in our main function, we will say lines is equal to get number of lines like that. And now what we can do is print out the balance and the lines just, so we can see what this is when we run the program. Okay, so now let us go here. Let us run. And how much would you like to deposit? Let us go with $100. Okay, enter the number of lines. Let us try 4. Okay, doesn't work. Let us try 0. Doesn't work. Let us try H. Doesn't work. Let us try 2. Valid. And notice I now have a balance of 100 and the number of lines is 2. The next thing I need to get for my user input is the amount that I want to bet on each line. So let us do this, and we will have a maximum bet as well. So we will say max bet is equal to, let us go with something like $100, and let us say the minimum bet is equal to $1. And again we are putting these as a constants so that we can use them kind of anywhere in our program. So now let us just write this function from scratch. Let us say coin get bet, so we can add our coin and continue and forget bet. We will just ask them how much they want to bet. And honestly, actually, now that I think of it, let us just copy this same thing from deposit. I don't like repeating all of this code, but they are slightly different, so it is fine to do something like this. So for the moment we can actually use the same value, and rather than what would you like to deposit, we will say what would you like to bet question mark. Again we are going to check if the amount is a digit. We are going to convert this now to an integer, and now we need to check if the amount is between the minimum and the maximum bet. So I am going to say the mean bet less than or equal to the amount less than or equal to the max bet. Okay, and then break. And here I am going to say the amount not must be greater than 0. Amount must be between. And now I am going to show you a second way that we can actually kind of put variables in our string. So I am going to use an f string here only available in Python 3.6 and above. I am going to say amount must be between. I am going to put my squiggly brackets like this, and I am going to say mean bet and then max bet. So this is actually a very easy way to embed values inside of your strings. You put f before the string and then you put your curly braces like this, and inside of the curly braces you can write any variable and it would automatically be converted to a string for you if it can be converted. So in this case I don't need to convert mean bet to a string or max bet. It is automatically going to get converted by Python, and I have just put my dollar sign here to make it look a little bit better. When I say between the mean and the max bet, okay, otherwise please enter a number, that is fine, and then return amount. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to say bet is equal to, and then this is going to be the getter bet. Alright, so we should actually make this bet more clear. What would you like to bet on each line? Okay, so now that we have done this and we have got the deposit, got the number of lines and got the bet, we are probably want to print out here in our main function kind of what we have said so far, right? So we will say you are betting, $5 on 3 lines. Your total bet is $15, something like about, right? So we are going to say print you are betting, and later do an f string here as well, and then later do a dollar sign, and we are going to say whatever the bet is, we are going to say you are betting whatever the bet amount is on, and then this is going to be lines like this, and then we will write lines and we will say total bet is equal to, and then we will put a dollar sign, and we are going to put inside of here a variable. I am going to say total bet is equal to bet multiplied by the lines. Okay, and we will say this is the total bet. Alright, so let us run this now and let us see what we get. We no longer need to print out the balance and the lines. By the way, alright, so let us run this. How much would you like to deposit? Let us say $100. Enter the number of the lines to bet on. Let us go with 2. Would you like to bet? How much would you like to bet on each line? Or what would you like to bet on each line? Let us go with $10. And now it says our total bet is $20. Great. So this is okay. But I just realized that we actually need to check if the amount that they are betting is within their balance, because they cannot bet more than whatever their current balance is. So we need to check that, and we could check this in a few different places. But since I have called this get bet, I am not going to put it inside of here. I am just going to do the check here, and then I am going to recall get bet. If they entered an invalid bet, so I am actually going to put now this inside of a while loop, and I am going to say while true, I am going to say bet is equal to g bet, and I am going to then say total be like this inside of here. So we put total bet. Okay, now I am going to say if my total bet is greater than my balance, then we will say print. You do not have enough to bet that amount, and then we will say what their current balance is, your current balance is, and then we will put dollar sign. We are going to put our f string here, and this is going to be their balance. All right, and then otherwise we will simply break out. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I also could just put condition here for the value, but I think this is okay for right now. Alright, so let us try this. Now let us run our code. How much would you like to deposit? Okay, $100. Let us bet on 3 lines. Let us try to bet $40. And since you do not have enough to bet that amount, current balance is $100. Okay, how much we like to bet on each line? Let us go with $20. You are betting $20 on 3 lines. The bet is equal to $60. Okay, so we have now successfully got the number of lines, the betting amount, the deposit amount. Now what we need to do is we need to actually run the slot machine. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, and I am going to start importing some modules. So the first module I am going to import is the random module, because we need to generate the slot machine value kind randomly, right? So how are we going to do this? Well, the first thing we need to figure out is how many times we want to have in each reel, and how long we want the lines to be. Now slot machine can get a bit complicated in terms of how the lines work. I am going to keep this really simple, and we are going to imagine that we have a 3 by 3 slot machine, and that we only get a line if you get 3 in a row. Okay, if you get 3 in a row, then you win. This might not be the best balanced slot machine. It might not be one you want to play on, but for this project, it is fine. So again, I am going to set some values here that specify the number of rows and columns we are going to have in our slot machine. So I am going to say row is equal to 3 and says is equal to 3. And if we wanted to make this a little bit better, we could say, I guess actually you know what row and cell is fine for. Right now, I don't know exactly what they would call. Like, I guess it would be like real count and number of reels or something like that. For now, though, this is fine. Alright. So what we need to specify is how many symbols are in each of our reels. Now it should be the same, at least from what I know. It should be same number of symbols in every single reel. We are not doing anything really complicated. When I say reel, I am taking about kind of one column, right? So how many symbols are in that column? Because we are going to have to randomly select out our those symbols, and then we need values for our different symbols. So we need to pick kind of. First of all, how many symbols do we want to have to in total, and what do we want those symbols to be? Now to keep this easy, we can do something just like A, B, C, D, like those are probably fine as the symbols. Yeah, we can do something like that. So let us say symbol underscore is equal to, and let us make a dictionary here. Now for our dictionary, I am going to have the symbol be a string, and I am going to have the count of this symbol in each real. So I guess what we can have is characters that are like at the beginning of the alphabet, like be the most valuable. So maybe we only have, I don't know, something like two A's in every single reel, and then for B we could have something like four of those, and for C's we could have six, and for D's we could have eight. Now again, I don't think this is going to be very balanced slot machine. I am not going for the best odds. Here I am just trying to kind of make something work. So let us see if this actually works for us. If every single reel we have two A's, four B's, six C's, and what do we call it? 8 D's to choose from. Now the thing that I think is going to be happen here is we are going to get a lot of situations where it is just D's that are being in the reels. But let us see if this works at all in terms of randomly selecting. Okay, so that is what we have done here. Now what we need is something that is essentially going to generate what the outcome of the slot machine was using these values here. So to do this, I am going to say define, and we will say get our slot machine under spin. Okay, and inside of here what we are going to take is we are going to take the rows, cells and symbols, and this will be the symbols that we pass. So these are three parameters that we are going to pass to this function, and then inside of here we can use these parameters. So inside of this function again, what we need to do is generate what symbols are going to be in each column based on the frequency of symbols that we have here. So we essentially need to randomly pick the number of rows inside of each column. So if we have three rows, we need to pick three symbols that go inside of each of the columns that we have. And for each column, we are going to kind of a new random pick, write a new and random generation of the symbols. Now this can be a bit complicated. Now the easiest way to randomly select values here for each of our columns is going to be to create a list that contains all of the different values we possibly could select from, and then to randomly choose three of these values, and when we choose a value we will remove it from the list, and then we will choose again. Now what I am going to do here is not going to be the most efficient algorithm, but since we are dealing with small values, this is fine. So let us see how we work with this. Okay, so what we are going to define here is our symbols. Okay, now this is going to be a list, and what we are going to do is write a for loop that is going to add however many symbols we have here into the all symbols list. So I am going to say 4, and since we are iterating through a dictionary, I can do the following. I can say 4 symbol comma symbol count, and then this is going to be in symbols dot items. Now when you use do items, what this does is give you both the key and the value associated with a dictionary. So I can get the key here and the value, and I can just use both of them rather than looping through the dictionary, only getting the keys and having the manually reference the values. Okay, so now that I have the symbol and the symbol count, I can add these many symbols to the what do you call is symbol list. Now there is a few different ways to go about doing this. I think the easiest way to do this is just going to be to run another for loop so that I don't confuse use anyone. So we are going to say 4, and then this is going to be later do this I in range and then symbol underscore count, and actually we don't even need I. We are going to put underscore. Now this is an anonymous variable in Python. So whenever you need to say loop through something but you don't actually care about the count or the iteration value, then you just put an underscore, and then you don't have an unused variable anymore. So I am going to say 4 underscore and range symbol count. I am going to say all underscores symbols dot, and then this is going to be append, and I am going to append whatever the symbol is. So what is going to happen here is I am going to loop through this dictionary. Let us imagine on the first key value pair my symbol is going to be A and my symbol count is going to be 2. Alright, so then I have another for loop inside of here where I am looping through the symbol count. So the symbol count is 2, and what I am doing is doing these two lines. So I am going to add this symbol twice into my all symbols list. Alright, now that we have all the symbols list, we need to select what values are going to go in every single column. So how do we do this? Well, let us make a for loop that is going to do this for every column. So I am going to say my column is equal to a list, and inside of here I am going to place a bunch of lists which are going to contain all of the values inside of my columns. Now this may seem a little weird to any of you that have used a nested list before, because typically when you write a nested list you kind of have all of the interior list here that are representing your rows. So if I had like 0 0, then this would be the values that are in row 0, right, or in the first row, and then this would be the second row, and etc. However, here we are doing it the other way around, where each of these nested lists is going to represent the values in our column. So keep that in mind. I will explain how this works in case any of you are a bit confused later on. But I just want you to know that we are storing the columns, not the rows inside of here. Okay, so we have all of the symbols, and now for each of the column that we have, we need to generate what is the values inside of the columns, and how many values do we need to generate. Well, however many rows we have, that is how many values we need. So we are going to say 4, and this is going to be call in range, and then calls like that, and then we need to say 4, and this will be row in range rows. Okay, so for every column we need to generate a certain number of symbols. So inside of here I am going to say that my column is equal to an empty list. This is not going to have our column inside of it. I am just was putting that there for an example, and now I need to select a certain number of values, sorry, from our all symbols list. So let us see how we do this. So we are going to say value is equal to random dot choice, and I am going to choose from all symbols. Now I can use random because I imported random here. Now what we are actually going to do though is we are not going to use the all symbol list. We are going to use a copy of this, and you will see why. But what we need to do is once we pick a value, we need to remove it from this list so that we cannot choose that value again, right? So if there are only two A's, we should not be able to select three A's. We should only be able to select that most two. And if we select one A, we need to remove it. So then the next selection doesn't have that as a chance. So that means we need to make a copy of all this symbol list, because if I start removing from this all symbols list, then when I try to do the next columns, it is going to have values removed. So that is what we need to do. We need to make a copy. So I am going to say current underscore symbol is equal to allowed symbols, and the way you copy a list is you do this. You put a call in here. This operator here is referred to as the slice operator, because if I just did this and made it equal to symbol, what happens is current symbol stores the same object as all symbols. Now that means anything I do to all symbols affect current symbols, and anything I do to current symbols affects all symbols. So this is not what we want. We don't want what is referred to as a reference. We want a copy. So the way you do the copy is you put a CO in here. Make sure you add this, otherwise it is not going to work. Okay, continuing here, now what we are going to do is select from our current symbols, and then we are going to remove whatever this value is from our current symbols list. So we are going to say current underscore symbols do remove, and then value. Now when you do remove, it is just going to find the first instance of this value in the list and get rid of it. Okay, now that we have done that, we want to add this value to our column. So we are going to say column do push, and sorry, not push. I am not in JavaScript, right? Now I am in Python to append the value. Alright, and I just realize here we don't actually need the column and we don't need the row. So we can just put underscores there. Now what we are going to do after this is we are going to say columns dot append, and we are going to append our current column. Now let me run through this because I understand it is a little bit confusing. We start by defining our columns list. Then we are going to generate a column for every single column that we have. So if we have three columns, we need to do everything inside of here three times. That is why we have this first for loop. Then inside of here, what all this code is doing is it is picking random values for each, I guess, row in our column, right? So for each value that we are going to have, so we say column is equal to an empty list. We say our current symbols, which are the ones we can currently select from, is equal to a copy of all symbols. Then we look through the number values that we need to generate, which is equal to the number of rows that we have in our slot machine. Then we say the first value we are going to get here. A value we are picking is random dot choice current symbols. This picks a random value from this list. Okay, we then say current symbols do remove the value, so we don't pick it again, and then we add the value to our column. Okay, once all of that is done, so this for loop is finished. Now we should have, however, many rows. There are symbols inside of our column. We now add our column to our columns list. Then finally we can do here, and we can return our columns. Okay, and remember that when we are looking at this list here, every interior list gives us the value of the items inside of our column. I know, a little bit confusing. This was quite a bit of logic, especially if you are a beginner programmer. But I told you I wanted to make this challenging enough to be interesting for you and show you some new stuff. So don't worry if this doesn't make complete entire sense. Maybe read through this a few times, pause the video, go back and listen to the explanation again. But this is, how we generate the items that are going to be in our slot machine. Now that we have this, we want a way to print this out. We want to look at this because I cannot even really test this yet until I can print out what is inside of all of the columns, and I want to print this in like a nice way. So I am going to make a function here and say define printer slot machine, and what we are going to take here is our columns. Now when we have our columns, it is not really in a format that is easy for us to print, because we have all of our columns kind of laid out as rows almost, right, like we have, maybe actually this is not going to be good, but we would have like a b c, and one maybe we have like a, and again these are our columns, not our rows. So what I need to do is kind of flip this around. So rather than having like a b c, a, it would go a b c, right, in the first column, and then this would say a, and then a, like that. I know that I kind of butchered this example, the way that I wrote it out. We need to change it from being this way to be this way, right? That is how we need to print it out. So we are going to do that. Well, this operation is actually referred to as transposing, because we have what is known as a matrix. We don't need to get into all of the fancy words, but understand this is known as transposing. So the way we are going to do this is we are going to write a for loop, and we are going to say for, and this is going to be row in change, and then we need to determine the number of rows that we have based on our columns. Now the number of rows that we have is the number of elements in each of the columns, right, because that is the number of vertical spaces we have. So we need to look at a column and get the length of that. So we are going to say the length of columns 0. Now this assumes that we have at least one column, and we should always have one column. So it is fine to put this here. But understand that if we did pass something that had no columns, this would crash, because there would be no column at index 0 to access. So I am saying for row in R, the line of columns 0, then what I am going to do is I am going to look through all of my columns and only print the first value in it, or whether the index of my current row is. Again, I will explain. This is a second. I know this is a bit confusing. So I am going to say for, and this is going to be column in and then column like that. And when I do this, now I am looping through all of the items inside of column, so it is giving me every individual column. So now that I have a column, I am just going to print the value that is at the first row of that column. So I am going to say print, and then I am going to print column at row, and I am just going to put a comma here and put a pipe operator. And the reason I am going to put a pipe operator is so that we have some separation between the different items, right? Now I just want to make sure though that I only put this pipe operator here if we are not printing the last column, because if we are printing the last column then we don't want to have the pipe like off, right? We only want to have two pipes in the middle, not one at the very end. So the way I need to check this, I need to say for I, comma, column in enumerate columns. Now when you enumerate, what this does is give you the index. So 0, 1, 2, 3 as you look through, as well as the item. So now that I have, what I can actually do here is I can say there are a few ways to do this. Let us actually go back to this. We will say if I does not equal, and then this is going to be the lane of column, cos minus 1 will do this. Otherwise we will print the same thing, we just won't print the pipe now. There is a bunch of different ways we could have done this, but this is just the way that I think is going to be the easiest. So that is how we will do it. So the reason I am checking if I is not equal to I of columns minus 1 is because the L of columns minus 1 is the maximum index. We have to access an element in the columns list, right? If we have a columns list with 3 items, the length is 3, the maximum index is 2. So if I is not equal to the maximum index, print the pipe, otherwise don't print the pipe. That is how it is going to work. Okay, so now we have print slot machine and get slot machine pin. That is all. This is all we need for printing the slot machine. So we look through every single row that we have. For every single row we look through every column, and for every column we only print the current row that we are on. So we are going to print what is it, row 0. So all of the elements in row 0 first, then row 1, then row 2, and this essentially transposes or flips our columns from being this way to be vertical this way. Alright, so let us try this now, and then we will kind of finish the program because we are actually getting quite close now. Alright, so once we determine what they are betting down here, what we need to do is generate the slot machine. So we are going to say slot. We will say just slot is equal to, and then this is, what do we call this function? We call it get slot machine spin. Okay, so get underscore slot machine spin, and then it autofilled this for me. We are passing the row columns and symbols. So rows is all capitals. Actually cos is like this, and the symbols, I believe we call this the symbols count, or we call it symbol count. So let us go here. and make that symbol count. Okay, so now we should have all the columns in our slot spin, right? That is what that did for us. Now what we need to do is we need to print this. So we are going to say print slot machine, and we are going to pass to there our slots, and really this is the columns, but I am just calling that slots because each one is like what is in the slot, right? Okay, let us give this a shot, guys. There probably will be an error because that is usually what happens when you write this much code from scratch. But let us see if this works. Okay, so we are depositing. Let us deposit $100. Enter the number of lines to bet on. Let us bet on 2. And then how much would we like to bet on each line? Let us do $10. Okay. Now already we got a bit of an error here because I forgot do something which I will add in a second. But if I scroll here, you can see that what is happening is we are printing everything correctly. We are just not printing it on the same line, which is what we need to do. So ideally want DA, A and D on the same line, CB and C on the same line, and BC and A on the same line. So the way that we fix that, my apologies here, guys. We go back to print slot machine, and here we add this thing called end equals, and we just make this A. What do you call an empty string? And in fact, let us actually do this. N is equal to a pipe with spaces. Alright, so what n does is it tells the print statement what to end the line with. Now by default, end is equal to what is known as the new line character or the return character or whatever you want to call. This carries return. There are different names for it. I call it the new line character. Now backslash. If you ever print this out, it is what tells the console to go to the next line. So we don't want to print that because if we print that at the end, then that means that we move to the next line after every single row. We only want to do this, sorry, after every single column. We only want to do this after every single row. So I am going to change this to be a pipe. So now we will just print this pipe at the end of our print statement. So after we print this, here we are just not going to print anything, and now we need one more check to see if we should go to the next line or not, because every row we want to go down to the next line. So I am actually going to say here print, and we can just do an empty print statement. Now by doing an empty print statement, it just brings us down to the next line because it prints a new line character by default at the end of the empty print statement. Seems a bit weird. That is kind of how this works. We are going to print the first row. This will go on the same line. Then we are going to print a new line character. So it brings us down the next line. Print the next row. New line character. Next row. New line character. Next row, etc. Right. So let us have a look at this now. Okay, let us go here. Let us run. How much you like to deposit? $100. Let us bet on 2 lines. How much would you like to bet? $10. And there we go. Now we have a slot machine. Excuse me, and this is correct, right? So we have all of our columns and then all of our rows, and what we would now be checking is if we have 3 in a row, right? That is what we are going to have to check. Okay, so we have a slot machine. we have spun it. We probably should have some input that asks like, do you want to spin the slot machine? And then they can hit spin, blah blah blah. Be a bit more interactive, but that is how it works. And just to be clear, here we are going to check if we have 3 in a row, and if we do based on the value of the symbol, we are going to multiply their bet and then give them that amount. Alright, so let us write a function that can do this. Now when we are checking if they want or not, we need to know what their bet is, which lines they bet on, right? And then we can actually check. Now the way the lines works, again I know this is not exactly how like a real casino slot machine will work. We are going to make it so that if you bet on one line, you just bet on the top line. If you bet on two lines, you bet on the top in the middle. If you bet on three lines, you bet on all three. I am not going to let the user pick like where the one line is they want to be bet on. We will just say 1 is top, 2 is both the top 2, 3 is all of them, and that is how it works. Okay, so let us do this. Let us go define check winnings. Okay, now to do this, we need the slot machine itself, we need the lines. So we are going to say lines, and we need the bet. Okay, so how we going to do this? Well, we just need to look at the rows that user bet on. So let us start with that, and then we can check each row and determine a value also for the symbol. So we are actually going to take one more thing. We are going to say values. Now I am also going to make the values here. So I am going to say symbol underscore value, and I don't know what actually makes sense again to do for this. We are going to say that D is going to be a 2 times multiplier, C is going to be a 3 times multiplier, this will be 4, and then this will be 5. So you know the more rare the symbol is, the higher your bet gets multiplied. Again, I don't think this is a fair slot machine, but that is fine. Okay, so check winnings. Now we have columns, lines, bet and value. Now let us look through only the rows that they bet on. So the lines that they bet on. So to do this, we are going to say for, and we will say line in range, then this is going to be lines like this. Now the reason this will work is because if they bet on one line, then we are going to go up to one line but not include it. So that means line will be equal to 0, right? So if it bet on line, then line is 1, and that means this is only ever going to be 0. If they bet on two lines, then line will go to 0 and 1. So we will check the 0th row, which is line 1, and the first row, which is line 2. If they bet on all three lines, then line will be 0, then 1, then 2. So we will check all three of these rows, right? And this will work dynamically even if there was more lines to bet on. So inside this for loop, we need to check that every single symbol in the line or row that we are checking is the same. So we can get the first symbol that is in this row, and then just make sure it is the same for the rest of the symbols. So to do that, we are going to say symbol is equal to columns Z at the current line. Now the reason we are using columns 0 is because we have all of the columns, not all of the rows. It makes it a bit more complicated. So we need to look at the first column because that is where the first symbols always going to be for each row and then get whatever line we are on. So first column and then either line 0, line 1, line 2, etc. Going down, that first column gives us the first symbol, and we are going to assume that we always have at least one real, right? So at least one column. So now that we have the symbol, we are going to look through all of the our columns. So we are going to say for column in columns like that. Now what we want to check, so the symbol to check is equal to the column at whatever row we are looking at. So if we are looking at row 0, we are checking the first symbol in the columns. If we are looking at row 1, checking the second symbol in the column, etc. Symbol to check. We are then going to say if the symbol is equal to the symbol to check, and actually we will say if it is not equal to the symbol to check, then we are going to break. Okay, and the reason we are breaking is because if we found one of the symbols is not equal to the previous symbol or equal to all of the symbols that should be in this row, then we just break out of the for loop, and what we will do is we will put an else statement here, and what this else statement will do is it will tell us if we did not break out of the for loop. So I am sure you probably haven't seen this before, but you can do a for else where if statement break, this else statement does not run. But if no break occurs within the for loop, then this else statement executes. So in the else statement here, what we will do is we will figure out how much they own. So we will say winning is equal to 0. Okay, and then here we are going to say winnings plus equals, and then this is going to be the values and the symbol multiplied by the bet, and then we can go here and return the winnings. Okay, so let us look at this because I am sure this is confusing. We have every line in the lines, which means we are looping through every row. Essentially, that we are going to be checking that the user bet on. We then say the symbol that we want to check is whatever symbol is in the first column of the current row, because all of the symbols need to be the same, right? We then say for column in column. So we now know the symbol that we are going to check. Now we need to loop through every single column and check for that symbol. So we go to each column and we say the symbol to check is equal to the column at the current row that we are looking at. So if it is row 0, we are doing row 0. If it is row 1, then check if these symbols are not the same. If they are not the same, we break out, which means that we are going to check the next line because they didn't win, because symbols were not the same. If they are the same, then we don't break. And if we get to do the end of this for loop and we have not broke out, which means all of the symbols were the same, then that means that the user own, and what they own is whatever the multiplier is for that symbol times their bet, right? And this bet is the bet on each line, not the total bet, right? So they could win on one line but lose on the other line. That is how it works. Okay, hopefully that is clear. I cannot explain it much more than that. Just understand symbol values here, right? Gives us 5 4 3 2. So that is what I am using. I am saying values at whatever the symbol is multiplied by the bet. That is how we are adding to the winnings. Okay, so that is it for determining how much they own. So let us run the game one full time now, and then we will figure out how we can run it multiple times and reduce the balance and all that, which is easier than what we just did. Okay, so we print the slot machine, and now we are going to say winning is equal to, and what did I call this? Check winnings. Okay, check winnings. We need to pass this our slots the number of lines. So I think we called that lines, right? The bait which we have right here, the values which is called symbol value. So let us go symbol underscore value. Alright, then we are going to print U1 and then whatever the amount is that they want. So let us make this an F string. Okay, and then U1, and then this is going to be winning this like this, and this could potentially be $0, right? Okay, so I think that is good. I am thinking that we might want to also tell them how many lines they want on or what lines they want on. So let us actually return that as well from this function. So get check winnings. We are going to do one more thing. Here we are going to say winning underscore lines is equal to an empty list. If they win, we are going to say winning lines do append, and this is going to be whatever the current line number is, but we are going to have to add 1 to it because this is an index and we want like line 1 2 3, not 0 1 2. So we say winning lines do a pen line plus 1. Then we go here and we put winning lines, and now we are returning two lines, the total amount they own as well as what lines they own on. Okay, so now let us go here to winning lines and we are going to say winnings and winning underscore lines. You own these winnings, and then we will say UW. We will print another line like this, FU1 on, and then this is going to seem a little bit weird, but I am going to do asterisk and then I am going to pass my winning lines. Now again I promise I was going to show you guys some new stuff. So I am showing you some advanced syntax here, but that this does it is actually called the splat operator or the unpack operator, and it is going to pass every single line from these winning lines list to this print function. So what that means is if we have lines like 1 and 2, it is going to pass both 1 and 2. So it is going to say U1 on and then 1 2. So I am going to say U1 on lines like this, and then it would say 1 space 2. If we want on all three lines, say 1 space 2 space 3. If we want on all three lines, say 1 space 2 space 3. If we did not want on any lines, then it is not going to say anything. Okay, you will see when we print this out how this works. So let us run this here. Let us make this full screen now and let us go through an example. So deposit it $100. How many lines for invalid? Okay, let us bet on two lines. How much would like to bet? $10. You own $0. Okay, so this is going to happen a few times. So rather than continuing to do this and hoping that we are going to win, let us make it so that we can run this multiple times without having to constantly return the program. So we have this main function. we have the balance and we have the lines. Now the balance is going to stay the same, but all of this stuff here needs to happen multiple times, right? And we will reduce from the balance and all that stuff. So let us copy all of this into a function, and let us say define, let us say game. Okay, we will put this inside of here, so this kind of executes one game. Now what we can do is write a w loop here, and this w loop can kind of handle running the game. Alright, so I am just thinking here, if we do this, we need some way to determine, like from this instance of the games, like per spin. So actually let us just say this is maybe spin. We need to know how much they own or they lost. So I am just going to return here the winnings minus the total bet, and that will tell us how much they own or lost from the spin. Because if they own $100 but they bet 15, then they only own 85. So then here we would update and we would add 85, right? But if they did not win anything, then it is going to be negative whatever the total bet is. So like 15 bucks, so we would subtract 15 from the balance. Okay, so here I am going to say while true, and we will print current balance is, and then we can just put comma. Actually let us do this as an f string. So we can put a dollar sign current balance is, and then we will do dollar sign and then balance. Okay, and then we will play game. So we will say spin equals input, say press enter to spin. Okay, so they will press enter to spin. So actually we don't even need to put a value here, because we don't care what they type in. Or actually we could say the spin is equal to press enter to spin, and we will say q to quit. So if they type in q, then we will quit. So we can say if spin is equal to q, then we will break the while loop, which will just end the game. Okay, otherwise we will spin. So we can say spin like that, and we will say balance plus equals spin. So the way that this works now is that spin is going to return to us however much they own or lost. It will tell them like what they own or lost. So then we will just update the balance based on the result of that spin, and then we will run this again and say okay, current balance is this, press enter to spin blah blah blah, and then when they spin they are going to have to enter this info. And actually press enter to spin probably does not make sense to go here, because you only want to spin after you enter your information. Although we can just have this verse, we will say press enter to play, that is fine, and then they can do it inside of there. Okay, now that we have that, I think that is actually all that we need. I will just make one last print statement here that says you left with, and then we will put it inside dollars, and then we will be the balance, and we will put an f string here. Alright, let us run this and give it a shot. Okay, so run, go here. How much you like to deposit? Let us deposit $1,000. Okay, current balance is $1,000. Press enter to play, q to quit. Okay, enter, and we got an object here, balance plus equals spin. Alright, looks like we need to fix this. So balance is equal to deposit balance plus equals spin. We have winning lines subtracted by total bet, and what is the problem? Alright, so the issue here is that I accidentally have the name of my function spin the same name as this right here. So we are just going to change this to be answer. So now this will work properly. Okay. So my apologies guys. Let us go here and fix this and let us say $1,000. Current balance is 1000. Press enter. Play. Okay. Enter the number of lines to about on. Let bet on two lines. It is bet 10 bucks. Okay. Balance is not defined. Looks like we need to fix another error. So what we need to pass here is balance to the spin function so that it can actually check this when we make a bet. So of course that makes sense. Just forgot to do that. So let us pass balance here and now we will actually be able to check that. Alright, so let us try it again third times. A charm $100. Current balance is $100. Press enter to play. Okay, number of lines. Let us go 3. Let us go $10. And you are betting on $10. You are betting $10 on 3 lines. Total bet is equal to $30. Okay, you own $0. You own on lines and it has an issue here. UNS supports operand for list and int. Okay, my apologies. That is because I put winning lines. This needs to be winnings. Alright, 4 times a charm. So let us make sure our variable names are correct. That was just a silly mistake. Let us clear and run $100. Enter 3 lines $10. Okay, you own $0. You own on lines. Your current balance is $70. Okay, let us play again. 3 lines $5. Okay, did we win anything? No, we did not. Alright, let us play again. I would really like to try to win something, but as we can see, the slot machine is not in our favor today. $10. You own 0. Okay. Current balance is $25. Alright. 3 lines $2. You own $4. Okay. Nice. So how did we end up winning $4? We bet $2 and we got a line here of D's, so that gave us times 2 multiplier. So 2 into 2, 4. So we own 4 bucks. There you go. And then our balance gets updated. Sorry, to $23 because we were at 25. Subtracted 6. Add 4. Yes. Okay. So that makes sense. Alright. So let us play again. Let us go 3 lines. $1. Okay. We own nothing. Let us play again. 3 lines. $1. UW nothing. 3 lines. $1. Offs. This is. Let us go. $3. UW nothing. Alright. Well, we won't continue to play, but you get the print. We have just created a slot machine, and now if I hit Q and enter, we leave with $11. Alright, so I think I am going to wrap it up there. I am going to zoom out a bit so you guys can read more of this code. I will just kind of scroll through it. So we did about 150 lines of code and I guess about an hour. Now I walked you through my thought process. I showed you about functions. I showed you about the anonymous variables. You saw this flat operator here, and when we own on a line, You saw it said we own on whatever the line number was. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Hopefully this showed you kind of how to structure a program. Notice that we put everything in separate functions. We have kind of spread our code out. We have made it very readable, and now we know if there is a bug anywhere, it is really easy for us to go and kind of figure out where that is, because we have separated everything into different units, right? Different blocks of code. In anyways, I will wrap it up here, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, everybody, and welcome to a brand new YouTube video. So it has been a while since I have done a kind of beginner project, something that really anyone can follow along with regardless of their background in Python. And so I wanted to do one for this video.